Hello there, welcome to Bryan Lomax Movie Talk and my top 100 movies of all time. I am doing this video in conjunction with Cody Leach, who is also doing his top 100 movies of all time. This isn't the first time I've done this. When I first started my channel way back when, if you go back and look, I did do a top 100 movies because, you know, first timer starting out on a YouTube channel. Go big or go home, I guess. Yeah, it's been 5, 6 years, 7. I think I started in 2014. So 7 years it has been since I did that top 100. Back then, it was much easier to do because I'd only seen around about 2,500 movies. But based off my letterboxed diary listings and whatnot, I can tell you I have now seen close to 4,000 movies. So yeah, this is my top 100 movies of the 4,000 that I have seen. Now, before we just get into it, I just want to say every movie on this list is a 5-star film for me. So if there is a movie that is like number 98 or something, and you're like, that should be in the top 10, then chillax, because like I say, it's a 5-star movie. These lists are very hard to do, especially when you've got 4,000 movies to choose from. Of those 4,000, I have only given around about 300 a 4.5 out of 5 or more. Given that I'm pretty crap at maths, I'm not going to give you the percentage there, but you can work that out for yourself. 300 movies of 4,000 is a pretty low percentage, you know. So this is a very select group of films. So 100 movies, starting with the worst and making my way to the best. Again, all 5-star movies. So let's not get our knickers in a twist about any positions. But yeah, if I did this list tomorrow, without looking at this one that I've done now, I guarantee I would put something in a different position. A list like this will always fluctuate, you know, it would never be exactly the same. But it has vastly changed since my original top 100 video. So yeah, a few surprises, a few disappearances since the last one. Yeah, so let's get into it. Scent of a Woman for me is a really great film, a really great character drama. I think it gets unfairly knocked by a lot of people, and a lot of people were dismissive of Pacino winning the Oscar because they think he should have got it for much better movies and stuff. I think it's really heartfelt. It hits me in the feels every time I watch it, and I just love seeing this relationship between this old guy and this young man, kind of, yeah, the two of them kind of fixing each other. It's a timeless story, and it's really well told. 12 Angry Men is a classic Sidney Lumet film. It is essentially a one-location film. It's just a bunch of guys in a room talking, which sounds like it could be very boring, but it's not. It's gripping, it's dramatic, it really kind of puts you in the moral hot seat where you have to decide what position you would take at various junctures. And yeah, it's a thinking man's film, and it's great. So the Coen brothers reimagined True Grit. It's not a remake, they said, but either way, remake, reimagining, it's one of the best westerns ever made. Loved it. I think Jeff Bridges is fantastic. Performances all round from everyone, in fact, are fantastic. And again, I just find it to be a really gripping western with characters that I'm drawn to, even the villains. Miller's Crossing, really great gangster film. One of the forgotten gangster films, I feel. One of the forgotten Coen brothers films in many ways. You know, like Coen brothers are up there in movie circles. They get talked about a lot. And you see films like Big Lebowski, Fargo, No Country for Old Men, always getting kind of touted as their best work. But for me, Miller's Crossing is certainly a contender for their best. I just think it's one of the best gangster movies ever made. I love the period detail. And I love the wranglings that go on between all the characters, especially John Turturro's kind of snivelling wretch of a man. Not so long ago, I did do my top 10 animated movies video. Iron Giant came in at number 2, so as you can imagine, there'll be another animated film on this list. But yeah, animation doesn't really tend to be the genre I gravitate towards. There's plenty of animated movies I would give a really high grade, but I just don't fancy rewatching a lot of animated movies. Iron Giant is one of those exceptions because I tear up. Every time I watch it, I tear up. And if you have seen that very top 10 video I've just talked about, you will probably see me tear up in that video as I start talking about the movie. Almost Famous is Cameron Crowe's best film, either as writer or director or both. It's just a classic. Enough said. There's a couple of dramatic films from Jim Carrey on this list, proving that it is an arena that he should delve more into. Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, a great film for sci-fi fans, but also just people who want to see something really creative, particularly on the visual standpoint. Michel Gondry, absolute wizard with the visuals, but just a cracking script as well that allows Jim Carrey to show us what he's made of when it comes to the more dramatic aspects of his work. The Thing is a film that I only learned to appreciate in recent years. I saw a little bit of it when I was a kid, didn't want to watch anymore because it scared the crap out of me. And then, yeah, as a grown man, a few years back, I finally went back, watched it, and I just thought, wow, brilliant, absolute classic. I've watched it a few more times since, and I appreciate it more each time. So, you know, if I do a top 100 in a few years from now, chances are this film will be higher up the list than it is now. Frank is a film I strongly urge everybody to go out and watch. It is a film where you look at the poster and maybe even see the trailer and think, that just looks dull as nuts, to be honest. Frank Sidebottom, if anybody knows who Frank Sidebottom is not a character I like at all. He always bugged me as a child, so I had no real compulsion to watch this movie. The only thing that made me watch it was director Lenny Abrahamson. I watched his film Room. It was fantastic. So I tracked down his other work, watched this, going into it a bit skeptical again, like I say, not a big Frank Sidebottom fan. But this isn't a film about Frank Sidebottom, it's about another person entirely, altogether, played by Michael Fassbender. And it is just electrifyingly brilliant. The performance is all around fantastic, and it goes places, some dark places, but in a really humorous way at times. And yeah, this kind of dark comedy for me is right up my street. And like I say, I strongly urge you to check out this film. And war movies are not really my cup of tea either. They're not the go-to genre that I would kind of pull off the shelves. But I got to say, there are a couple of handfuls of war movies that I just think are fantastic. 1917 is definitely one of them. Filmed as one long take, and just incredible cinematography from Roger Deakins, brilliantly directed by Sam Mendes, cracking central performance by the lead actor whose name escapes me right now. But it's just a race. It's a race against time. You're with this guy. You're going in and out of the battle. It's adrenalizing. It's scary. It's just, yeah, it's gripping. Really great war film. Munich is my favourite Steven Spielberg film, which I know is really going to upset a few people right now, because that means there are no more Steven Spielberg movies on this list. Now, if I did a Mount Rushmore of directors, Steven Spielberg would be on that mount. He would be on a part of that Mount Rushmore. So many of his films get like a 4.5 out of 5 from me. There's quite a few that get 5 out of 5. They just didn't quite make this list. So yeah, while it may appear that having only one Spielberg film in this list makes it look like I don't really favour him as a director, I can tell you that that couldn't be further from the truth. Love his movies, but Munich for me is his best. It's gripping. It's a political thriller based on a true life story, a harrowing true life story. And I just think Spielberg goes dark. He goes serious. He pays real respect to the events and to the characters involved. It's certainly not one of his movies you can just bash on any time. It's not a fun ride. But I just think it is his finest work. Back to war movies again now. Like I say, not one of my strongest genres, but there are two movies on this list. The first one was 1917. The second is Dunkirk. Yep, my favourite war movie, shock horror, is a Christopher Nolan movie. I'm sure that's not a big surprise to anyone, but yeah, for me, loved this film from start to finish. It is Nolan's shortest film after Following. It was quite a surprise, actually, that it was such a short film, but it's just an adrenaline rush. It's not that fussed about giving you big character arcs and a big story like that. It is all about the experience. It's a roller coaster ride. It throws you in the deep end with a bunch of people that we don't really know, but we kind of don't need to, because the fight for survival is the thing that is most important in this film. And you are along for the ride. You are with these people. You are fighting alongside them, and you just want them to get out of the hell that they're in. It's a great film that pays tribute to the many heroes that died and that survived and that helped the soldiers get out of Dunkirk during that particular event. Reservoir Dogs is that Tarantino film that most people, just have put up there on a pedestal for so long, and I always kind of felt was maybe a little overrated. I loved it as a teenager. I thought it was a really great film. Got caught up in that whole Tarantino hoopla and stuff, and I think because of that, I started to swing the other way for many years, and then I didn't touch Reservoir Dogs again. I thought maybe it's just a bit overrated, to be honest. And then I watched it again recently for the first time in years for the 31 and 31 we did, and I'm like, damn, this is a bloody good debut. This is I was wrong. This film is great. It is just fantastic. Tarantino, one of my favourite directors. And it's just, one of the strongest debuts ever made. Two Bond films up next, the first of which is Skyfall. Really great kind of thematics going on in here about the trust between surrogate mother and son. We've got two sons, essentially. Both of them have been essentially sacrificed for the greater good, the greater picture. One of them does not agree with that sacrifice, thinks they've been mistreated, and goes out for revenge, where the other one accepts that sacrifice, realises why it was done, and recognises that his purpose is for the greater good. And it's just, I love it. It's a great Bond film. It's very stylish. Sam Mendes, once again, brilliant cinematography throughout, from Roger Deakins again once more. Daniel Craig just really knocking it out of the park. It brings a lot of the traits back of Bond that a lot of people have felt were missing in Quantum of Solace, which I still rate as a really great Bond film. But yeah, definitely one of the best Bond films, but not quite the best, depending on what day I'm on. Today, it would be Casino Royale, which is next, obviously. So Casino Royale, for me, still the best Bond film, just by a slim margin, by a hair. It's really hard to call it between this and Skyfall. But yeah, it got Bond back on track after the awful Die Another Day. And it's just, made Bond serious, brought him down to earth, made him grounded. A lot of Bond fans don't particularly like that about Daniel Craig's Bond, but I love it. I think it's great. I think it's the direction to take him in. I think it's more in line with what Fleming probably had in mind. I'm sure many Bond fans would attack me for saying that. I don't know, but anyway, I love it. Craig is my Bond. This is my Bond film. Enough said. The Last Samurai is one of Tom Cruise's best films. I love the period detail. I love the location because I love Japan. I love Japanese culture. I love samurai culture. this film just really floats my boat. It's Dances with Wolves, but with samurai. It's Avatar, but with samurai. It's that age-old story that has been told many times before and will be told again. You take someone from a different culture, drop them into this other culture, and they become immersed in that culture, appreciate that culture, grow to love that culture, and become a part of that culture. Again, like I say, it's a universal story, but it's brilliantly told by Edward Zwick, the director. Great script, really great characters, beautiful action sequences, and just quite a poetic movie with a lot of heart. Scream is the film towards the end of the 90s, well, mid-90s, that really got me into the horror genre, particularly the slasher genre. It's the first film that I went to the cinema to see more than once. I saw it 3 times at the cinema. It was the first time I'd ever done that. I just loved it. I watched it on repeat for a good few years when it first came out on DVD. It's still one of my favourite slasher movies, still one of my favourite horror movies. Wes Craven's best. I know some people would argue against that, but hey ho, whatever. For me, it's his best. I love it. I'm looking forward to the next one, even though it doesn't have Wes Craven at the helm, because obviously he's not with us anymore, but we'll see. We'll see where that goes. Hopefully they won't cock it up, but even if they do, we've still got this one. I'm not the biggest Rocky fan when it comes to the franchise as a whole. I can take or leave most of the sequels, to be perfectly honest. But Best Picture winner, the original Rocky, the first film, a really great story about an underdog, and just the fact that he doesn't win at the end. And he doesn't need to, because actually just getting in the ring is a win in and of itself. And to me, I love that story. I love that we can, celebrate a loss as a victory. It's a great film. There's a lot of inspiration in here, I think, from the film On the Waterfront. And all the better for it, because On the Waterfront is a film that you are going to find on this list. One of my favourites. So yeah, Rocky, brilliant. It's Stallone's best film. It's certainly his best performance. It's a role that came from his heart. He wrote the script, so it's certainly something he was very invested in, and that shows. It shows in his performance. My favourite Hitchcock film next is Psycho. It is arguably the granddaddy of all slasher movies. It was released, of course, in the same year as Peeping Tom. I think both movies are vying for that title. But yeah, without Psycho, you wouldn't have Scream, you wouldn't have Halloween, you wouldn't have half of the slashers we have today, I don't think. Norman Bates, still the most interesting character in slasher movie history as far as I'm concerned. When we're talking about the big 3, when it comes to slashers, personally, I think one of those big 3 should be taken out and Norman Bates should be put in. And I know most people think I'm smoking crack for saying that, but whatever, that's just my opinion. And opinions are like arseholes. Everybody's got one. Die Hard pretty much revitalised, revamped, reinvented, whatever the word might be that you choose to use, the action genre. It was a shot in the arm for the action genre. At this point, action heroes had to be big, they had to be burly, they had to have muscles coming out of their ears. And in John McClane, we got an everyman, just the average cop, not particularly muscle-bound. He was a flawed guy. He had a relationship with his wife that was on the rocks, and he gets thrown into this really difficult situation in which he overcomes a bunch of terrorists. Boom, you've got gold. Bruce Willis, fantastic. Alan Rickman, one of the best movie villains of all time. It's an absolute adrenaline rush. Like I say, I'm pretty sure people will say it's a sin that it's not higher on this list. It's a 5-star film for me. It's a classic. It's an absolute classic. It's practically faultless. So yeah, one of the best action movies ever made. Warrior is one of the films on this list that I've not really seen as much as all the other films on the list. In fact, I've only seen it once, but it had a real impact impact on me. I loved the story of these two brothers who were at odds coming together in the ring and working out their differences in the ring. So yeah, I love it. It's one that I really need to get back around to watching again. But I just think it's a brilliant story, well told, that kind of put Gavin O'Connor on the map for me as a director. Before this, I didn't really take much notice of him, but this is the film that made me think, actually, you know what, this guy's got something. So yeah, great film, brilliant performances from Tom Hardy and Joel Edgerton. Yeah, if you haven't seen it, I urge you to check it out. Causing quite the consternation when we did our Action 31 on 31. That's right, Speed is rated higher for me than Die Hard. But like I say, they're neck and neck. As far as I'm concerned, they're like that. And if anybody wants to argue that Die Hard is a better film than Speed, I'm fine with that. I'm good with that. I can totally understand that. You'll have no argument from me. It's just personally, like I say, on a personal level, Speed hits me in a more emotional way. Just the relationship that develops between Keanu Reeves' character and Sandra Bullock, and particularly Bullock's performance and her reaction to everything that's going on around her, is very human, very well delivered. Still probably her best performance as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, it's a film that actually gets me in the feels, whilst also being a real adrenaline rush for action junkies. It is a perfect action film. Tarantino's most underrated film for me is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I've seen it 3 times now, and I love it. I absolutely love it. I think it's just a really great story about the loss of innocence, the loss of something, of someone that had a lot to offer the world. It's a love letter to Hollywood. That's something that's been said many times before. But I think it is Tarantino's most human story, most heartfelt story. But yeah, wrapped up in some of his best characters. Pitt's character and DiCaprio's character in this film, they're up there for me. They're probably my favourite of his characters. The early 90s saw a whole spate of psycho killers hitting the screens. There was, it was kind of like the era of the Psycho Next Door kind of movies. I think Pacific Heights and Internal Affairs, and what was that one with Ray Liotta as an Unlawful Entry, all those kind of things. The Psycho movie was just kind of, I just remember them being like Hand That Rocks the Cradle. They were just everywhere in the 90s, early mid 90s. The best of the bunch, one of the best of the bunch, I must say, because there is another one that is slightly above this. It's Silence of the Lambs. It took home the 5 big Oscars, director, film, writer, actor and actress. Deservedly so. It's an incredible piece of work. It's brilliantly directed by Jonathan Demme. His use of the camera and the looking into the camera perspective to get us into the characters' heads and mindsets and whatnot is really brilliant. It's an amazing character study, not just of Clarice Starling, but also of the character of Buffalo Bill, as well as the man himself, Hannibal Lecter. The Hurricane delivers for me Denzel Washington's best performance, which is a pretty bold statement, to be honest, and I do say that with a pinch of salt, because it's not like it's up there compared to the rest of his work. This is Denzel Washington we're talking about. He never really phones it in, it's a brilliant film. I absolutely love it. I was a fan of the Bob Dylan song "The Hurricane" for the longest time before seeing this film, and then watching the film, it brought everything about that song that I loved to the screen. It's just a true story. Tragic story, but one that is also quite inspiring when you think about the best of us what the best of what humanity has to offer, alongside, unfortunately, the worst. Batman Mask of the Phantasm is my favourite animated movie of all time. I just absolutely love it for obvious reasons. Hello! Yeah, big Batman fan. This is a movie that is arguably better than any of the live action movies. You know, if somebody wants to make a case for it in that regard, totally get that. It's certainly, you know, if you look at the faithfulness it shows to the comic books, Kevin Conroy's Batman is probably, again, arguably the best Batman. So yeah, huge fan of the animated series. So when this movie came out, I was so excited, and boy, it didn't disappoint. Really great Batman story, very mature Batman story, given that this came from a series that was made essentially for kids. But again, the series itself never really felt like that. It felt like it was really made by adults for adults, but with kids being the gateway into it. So yeah, great film, absolutely love it. My favourite animated movie of all time. Huge science fiction fan right here. I love Avatar. I thought it was a great movie. I think that given how big it was, that because of that, it created a bit of backlash, where it became cool to rag on it. It's dancing demons in space. Yeah, whatever. I can think of a dozen movies that, you know, are Seven Samurai in space, or, you know, Seven Samurai in a cafe. I don't know. It's just, the fact of the matter is, stories get recycled. The important thing is, what do you do with it? Do you make it interesting? And Cameron does. He takes a story that has been told before and he makes it visually stunning. He makes it a feast for the eyes. Really involving. I think the world is highly immersive. I want to go back there. Can't wait for the sequels. Bring them on. Silver Linings Playbook is just a really brilliantly crafted character piece. I love the two central characters played by Bradley Cooper and Jennifer Lawrence. There's a lot of heart in it. They are two crazy people who fix each other. Again, one of those stories, that's that story that has been told many times before. You get two people who are very kind of broken and whatnot, and when they come together, they fix each other. They make each other a whole person. And yeah, just, I've seen it a few times, and each time I've seen it, that final dance sequence that they do, there's something that happens in that, and it just reduces me to tears of laughter. It's one of the funniest things I've ever seen. Yeah, it's brilliantly played. I absolutely love it, and even Chris Tucker is great in it. Grosse Point Blank, Hitman goes to his high school reunion, hijinks ensue. It's brilliant, it's funny, it's action-packed, it's got an amazing fight sequence in it between John Cusack and his real-life fighting instructor. I think because of that relationship there, that trust, they are able to really go at it, and it's one of the best fight scenes. It's one of my favourite fight scenes anyway, but the whole film is just really great. Great characters, really funny, great action. For the longest time, Unforgiven was my all-time favourite Western. You know, it's still my second favourite. Yeah, anyone who wants to say Unforgiven is the best Western ever made, I'm right there with you. I can totally understand that. It's an incredible film. It's a film in which the script was sat on by Clint Eastwood for well over a decade. He bided his time, waited until he was the right age to play the character, and then he came out, he directed it, and took the film to Oscar glory. He won Best Film at the Oscars, and understandably so. It's an incredible piece of work, really character-driven. It's quite a dark story. You know, it's about the darkness that lies within this man who has suppressed it for many years, and then kind of finds a reason really to let it back out again. Yeah, it's great stuff. It's really iconic. If you love Westerns, you've got to love Unforgiven. Out of Sight is that film where George Clooney said, you know what, enough of Batman and Robin, enough of Perfect Storm, enough of sitting on my ass, just resting on my laurels, thinking that stardom's going to take me places. No, I need to be an actor. I need to take this stuff seriously. I need to handpick the roles really carefully. And when he started doing that, well, he made Out of Sight. Still one of my favourite movies of his. Still my favourite movie by the director. His name totally farted out of my brain right now. But yeah, Steven Soderbergh. Still Steven Soderbergh's best film for me personally. I just love it. Philomena is one of the best character-driven pieces to come out in recent years. Steve Coogan really impressed me in this film. It was like the first time I really took notice of him as a serious actor, and it's just a really beautifully told story about forgiveness. You got this woman who's really badly treated, and he has this righteous anger for her, like on her behalf, and kind of against organised religion and whatnot. But actually, she's the one who's been wronged, and yet she's the one who's able to come to this place of forgiveness. And it's a beautiful moment right at the end of the film. It's just, yeah, I love the relationship between the two of them that builds up over the course of the movie. If you like character-driven dramas that aren't full of big bangs and special effects and all that, but it's just all about the character, and this is a really, really special movie. Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford, whilst being a ridiculous title, is just an incredible film. It's got some of Roger Deakins' best work as cinematographer. It's brilliantly directed. The performances are absolutely top notch. This film should have been nominated for Best Picture without any doubt, as far as I'm concerned. It was the same year that There Will Be Blood came out, No Country for Old Men came out, and if I'm being perfectly honest, I think the Oscar voters at that time probably just didn't want to overload the Best Picture nominations with Westerns. That year was a bloody good year for Westerns, Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford, certainly one of the best. In America is another one of those dramas I was talking about. Those no flash or bang. It's just pure raw emotional stuff. Very character driven, very heartfelt, semi-autobiographical from director Jim Sheridan, and that shows. You can see he's invested in this story as a filmmaker. Brilliant performance, central performance by Paddy Considine, and the two girls that play the daughters. It's a heartbreaking film. The scene where he's trying to win the teddies for them at the fairground is the most tense sequence. that is out there. You wouldn't think it would be, but it is. He's trying to win these toys for his kids. They've got no money, and yet he keeps plowing more money down, betting more money to get it, just because he doesn't want to disappoint his kids. And it's such a tense sequence, brilliantly played, brilliantly directed. But the whole film is again, like I say, it's really heartfelt. It really touches the heartstrings, really plucks the heartstrings. If you've not seen In America, get on that right now. Stranger Than Fiction is one of the most underrated movies ever made, as far as I'm concerned. I think the director, Mark Forster, is one of the most underrated directors out there, to be perfectly honest. I love this film. Again, I find it really touching. Just the characters are brilliant in it. It's more of a serious role for Will Ferrell. There is comedy in it. There is certain humorous elements about his character, but it's a lot more dialed down. You know, if you're one of those people who doesn't really like the whole Will Ferrell shtick with his comedy, please don't let that stop you from watching this film. I'm not that big on his comedy stuff, but this film is great. His performance in it is really great. I really feel for this guy. I'm really connected to this guy. I root for this guy. He plays this man who hears this woman narrating his entire life in his head, and then he realizes that she exists in the real world. She's a writer, and his life is the story she's writing. And she announces that she's gonna kill him off, so he's got to stop her from doing that. And it's just how it resolves itself is really brilliant. Like I say, everything about this film I just love, and it's so underrated. I really do wish more people would talk about it. With Annihilation, writer-director Alex Garland has produced one of the best science fiction movies in recent memory. It's a horror, it's an action film, it's a sci-fi piece. It's got really brilliant themes in it. The way that it deals with them about humanity kind of on a course for self-destruction, and how if we don't become something new, something better, something transformed, then we are heading towards annihilation. It's a really brilliant film, and it's one of those instances where, you know, Garland is a self-proclaimed atheist, and yet within his work, time and time again, I find so many spiritual elements in it, so many themes and moments that speak to me as a person of faith, which I find very interesting. I really do. So there you go. I love this film. Like I say, if you're a sci-fi fan, you need to watch this film. On the waterfront, I've already mentioned this with Rocky. I do, you know, when I watch this, I see a lot of Rocky in it. I see where Rocky got a lot of its kind of inspiration from. The central character, played by Marlon Brando, has a very kind of similar vibe about him. You know, he's a thug for the mob. Basically, he goes and collects money and stuff, and then he goes on a journey of redemption. Basically, he turns himself around, goes another way, realizes that he has to be better than that. And it's just a brilliant film. It's my favourite film of the 1950s. I've watched it many times. Again, it really speaks to me from a faith perspective. There's a priest character in it who I really love as a film character, the way he stands up to injustice. It's just, yeah, On the Waterfront is an absolute classic, deservedly picked up Best Picture at the Oscars, which doesn't often happen, to be quite honest. But this is one of those rare cases where it did. Zack Snyder's Justice League. Yes, I have been very, very quiet on the Zack Snyder's Justice League front, which I know has made some people kind of a little bit frustrated and has weirded some people out. It's like how Brian's banged on about this movie for the past few years. He really wants to see it. It's his most anticipated film. And then when it comes out, radio silence. Well, here it is. It's in my top 100 movies. I loved it. Okay, I absolutely loved it. It was everything that I wanted it to be. It didn't feel overlong. It's a 4-hour running time, and yet it just passed like that. I just, every conceivable element of this film is an improvement over the Justice League version. And I know that sounds rich coming from a guy who can't live this down. I'll never live this down. It will forever be etched on my tombstone when I pass away. Bryan Lomax gave Justice League a 5 out of 5. I've explained many times, look, it's just, yeah, that is a film that has decreased a lot in my estimation with every viewing. And I watched the Justice League actually after I saw Zack Snyder's Justice League. I watched it because I wanted to refresh myself and just see how different it was. And good Lord, I'm not sure. I don't think I'll ever watch the Justice League again, to be honest. After that viewing, it was just, what a mess. But man, Zack Snyder's Justice League, it's a work of art. Okay, it's an absolute work of art. And I know that there's still the Zack Snyder haters out there who he could, he could make the next Shawshank Redemption and they still wouldn't see it. They don't care. It's just Zack Snyder will forever be tainted as far as they are concerned. But I love Zack Snyder. I love his movies, and I think this is one of his best. It's just brilliant. It's just like, as a Batman fanboy, as a Superman fanboy, as a Wonder Woman fanboy, just as someone who loves these characters, I think Snyder gets them. A lot of people out there think he doesn't, but I think this has been a journey. I think he's done a really good character journey of these characters leading up to this point. And yeah, restore the Snyderverse. I love it. It's great. I hope to do a commentary on the whole of the film at some point, but that may be a while. But anyway, here it sits. in my top 100. Damien Chazelle is still in the early phase of his career, having only done 4 feature films. But yeah, this is the one that kind of really announced him to the world. It is absolutely blistering. It's just, yeah. Whew, the characters in this are just really on point. I think the performances from the 2 leads are incredible. I don't think the performance by Miles Teller gets quite enough credit, to be honest. Miles Teller wasn't a drummer before making this film, but yeah, the commitment he shows as an actor and you know, learning what he needed to learn to make it look convincing is really incredible. But yeah, like I say, it's just some of the finest performances in recent memory, and just it's a gripping drama. Damien Chazelle once again. So this was his follow-up to Whiplash, and for me, it is a slightly better film. I know a lot of people prefer Whiplash. I am more the La La Land kind of guy. I love everything about this film. The songs, the score, yeah, all the music in this is just really great. It's done by the same guys who went on to do The Greatest Showman. They are definitely masters of the craft in that regard. Chazelle himself is just blows me away with the way he directs this movie right from the opening frames. The performances by Emma Stone and Ryan Gosling really make me root for these characters, even when everything is starting to kind of be torn apart between them. I want them to get back together. I love both of these characters. It's a really great film about the land of dreams and, you know, the lies that it draws people in with, and just, yeah, it's a film about Hollywood. Again, that term, it's a love letter to Hollywood. It's a term that people band about a lot, but it is a love letter to Hollywood, but it's also tinged with a sense of reality about what the dreams of Hollywood can offer. So yeah, brilliant film. But not my favourite film of the year that it came out. That honour goes to The Nice Guys. So yeah, La La Land was my number 2, and The Nice Guys was my number 1. This is Shane Black firing on all cylinders. Ryan Gosling once again proving his chops for comedy. He's absolutely hilarious in this. Russell Crowe is the straight man, although he is quite amusing at times as well. The chemistry between them two is very unexpected, to be honest. As a pairing, Ryan Gosling, Russell Crowe, I don't really think of those two. I wouldn't have thought of those two as a pairing, but they are electric together. This film didn't do that well at the box office, which is a crime against cinema, quite frankly, because we should be getting a sequel to The Nice Guys. The Nice Guys is a film that is primed for a sequel, and with the chemistry that you have between these 2 leads, it is a crime that we probably won't ever get one, because I want to see these guys on screen together, as many times as they're willing to get on screen together, quite frankly. Fighter is my favourite boxing movie of all time. I absolutely love it. I think it's very down to earth, very gritty, very real. It is based on a true story. It's got amazing performances all round. Amy Adams, Christian Bale, Mark Wahlberg. David O. Russell is firing on all cylinders as director. He is one of my favourite directors. This is his best work, I think. This is a film that was actually intended to be directed by Darren Aronofsky, but he went off to do The Wrestler. David O. Russell took over on this, and I'm really glad that he did. I prefer this to The Wrestler. I think a lot of people would disagree that this is better than The Wrestler. I just think it's an amazing film. Does it have a few tropes in it that we've seen before in other movies? Yeah, but what movie doesn't? You know, that's just the nature of movies. It's the nature of storytelling. We tell the same stories over and over again, but this is a real life story, and it's expertly told. Performances are off the charts incredible, picking up several Oscars, and yeah, I love it. The fight sequences, the boxing sequences are really incredible. It's a story about redemption, particularly the character that's played by Christian Bale. He has a redemptive arc, which I'm really invested in, and it hits me in the feels every time I watch it. Joker is just, for me, again, as a Batman fan, as a fan of the Joker character, I just love this iteration. I know a lot of people are going to say, oh, it's Taxi Driver, it's early Scorsese, they just ripped off Scorsese. It's like, so what? So what? I don't care. Is it a good film? You're damn right it is. Is it a brilliant character study? You're damn right it is. Does it have an amazing central performance by Joaquin Phoenix? You're damn right it does. It's just, there's nothing about this movie that isn't expertly made. The fact that it resembles other movies is of no consequence to me. I love the cinematography, I love the score, the performances, the story is brilliant. I think it is a wake-up call to society and the world we live in to take better care of those that are on the outside, that are on the fringes. I think that is a message that was severely missed by a lot of people who just wanted to attack the film. And I think maybe as a way of not having to accept the moral responsibility that we all have to look after people on the fringes. So yeah, for me, it's quite a divisive film, but I loved it. It's brilliant. It was the best film of the year. They're on about doing a sequel. I'm up for that. Bring it on. Bring it on. Sunshine is my favourite Danny Boyle film. It is once again written by Alex Garland, atheist extraordinaire who for some reason makes movies that I feel very spiritually connected to. This being one of them. This is a film about faith versus science. Can the two coexist? Are they part of the same beast, or are they mutually exclusive? That is the theme of the film that Boyle discusses, and I think he does so brilliantly. I've done movie essays on this over on this channel and over on my Movie Evangelist channel. It is a film that I love. Gets a lot of flack for the ending. A lot of people say that the ending changes tone and stuff. I completely disagree. I think it's the logical place for the film to end up, given that it's about how when we remove ourselves from the rest of humanity, or when we remove ourselves from a spiritual element away from God, what does that turn us into? All that stuff is in there, and I think the ending perfectly encapsulates those themes and deals with them. So for me, it's not a shift in tone. It is the logical place to take the movie. Brilliant science fiction. V for Vendetta is an incredible political thriller. It is a film that I think I've said many times before on my channel. I wasn't overly keen on the first time I saw it, but that's because I got missold the product. I was expecting a Matrix-style epic action movie. That's not what it was. It's not what it is. It's a political thriller. It's a film about ideas. It's a film about characters. And once I understood that and got that and came to it on its own terms, the movie just got better and better for me. And every time I watch it, it gets better. I absolutely love it. It is a call to arms. It is a film that feels more relevant now than it ever did. Yeah, it's great. James McTeague doesn't get enough credit as director. It seems to all go to the Wachowskis, which I know they wrote the script for this and they produced the film, but yeah, McTeague was on there as director, and I think he does an amazing job. There Will Be Blood is a fantastic film about capitalism versus organised religion. It is, they are the two cornerstones that gave birth to America in effect, religion and capitalism. And that's essentially what the film is. You've got these two different characters who portray or embody those kind of philosophies, those ideals, those ideologies, and they go at each other. And as the title suggests, there will be blood. They can't coexist. One of them will have to knock the other one out. We'll have to kill the other one. And it's just, it's a movie about the current state of America, and where it's come from. It's just, it's a brilliant film. It's amazing direction from Paul Thomas Anderson, one of my favourite directors, and not the last film of his that you're going to see on this list. I've talked about Calvary a lot on my channel, but every opportunity I get to talk about it, I take it, because more people need to see this film. It's fantastic. I love movies about forgiveness. I love movies that present the ideas of forgiveness in such a powerful, strong, raw, emotional way, and this film is one of them. It's a great central performance by Brendan Gleeson, who is one of my favourite actors. It's just brilliantly written, brilliantly directed. I think one of the criticisms of the film is that it is not necessarily filled with characters as it is caricatures. But that doesn't bother me because the film is a parable. The film is, these different characters represent certain aspects of the sinful nature, the sinful man. So they don't need to be real to me. The only person who needs to be real is the central character, is this priest that we're following. So for me, yeah, the film is an absolute masterpiece. If you've not seen Calvary, check it out. You do not have to be a Christian to watch it. In fact, I would probably say it would work better for mostly for non-Christians than Christians. I'm a Christian who studies film, so I can accept certain things about it because I see the message that is underneath. Whereas I think a lot of Christians would watch this and be like, "Oh, no, not for me." Very dark. It's got a lot of dark humour. Like I say, it's not for everyone. If you just watch it. Well, Calvary is what I consider to be the best film by John Michael McDonough. His brother, Martin McDonough, who made three billboards outside Ebbing, Missouri, made his best film In Bruges, which sits right here on my list. This is another film that I have done a video essay on over on my other channel, The Movie Evangelist. I think it's, really brilliantly told story that deals with the theme of guilt and how that weighs on a person and how you might escape it, how you might overcome the guilt that might weigh you down, what you have to do in order to do that. It's a great central performance by Colin Farrell, who is both really amusing. He's got the awesome comedy chops in this film, but also goes to some really dark, emotional places that make me feel for this guy. It's a very finely balanced performance. That if you don't watch this film and come away thinking actually Colin Farrell is a really underappreciated, phenomenal actor, then you weren't paying attention, quite frankly, because his performance here is great. Once again, as well, Brendan Gleeson, like I say, one of my favourite actors, never phones it in. He's great here, absolutely fantastic performance. And even Ralph Fiennes gets to show some dark comedy chops. I love him in this film. You'll see Ralph Fiennes like you've never seen him before. That's all I'll say. If you want to see Ralph Fiennes as you've never seen him before, watch In Bruges. It's an absolute masterpiece. Into my top 10 movies of all time now. The Big 10, so to speak. Let's go. I've always loved Aliens ever since I saw it as a young teenager. I never quite realised just how much I loved it until my most recent watch. I reviewed the Alien movies, well, most of them. I've still not done Alien Resurrection, can't quite bring myself to do that one yet. But yeah, watching this again after so long, I was like, man, this is, it is an absolute masterpiece. And it's so, like I say, I've always loved it. I've always it's always been a 5-star film for me, but just watching it recently, I was just so impressed with the way that James Cameron deals with that theme of motherhood throughout the film. It's It's a big action movie. It's a big sci-fi movie. It's a big horror movie. It's got great drama, great characters. It's just, there is nothing about Aliens that is mishandled. Everything about this film is just spot on perfect. Sticking with sci-fi, like I say, I am the big sci-fi guy. Interstellar, I love this movie. It hits me with such an emotional punch every time I watch it. There's two or three big moments in the film where each time I've seen it, they bring tears to my eyes. It's like, for me, this is Nolan doing 2001. It's no secret that Nolan is a big Kubrick fan, and this is clearly a love letter to Kubrick, to what Kubrick did with 2001. It's what 2001 would be if Nolan made it. But for me, it's a better film, because while 2001 is expertly crafted, it just doesn't quite have that emotional beating heart that this film has. This film's got the ideas, it's got the broad scope, the grand kind of scale, but it's also got the real intimate character moments that just touch me in a very human way. Terminator 2 is, again, like Aliens, directed by James Cameron. It's one of those sequels that is better than the original. It's one of the best sequels ever made. Clearly, Cameron is the king of the sequel, which really gives me hope for what he's going to give us with the Avatar sequels. Terminator 2, again, another film that I've always loved, always given 5 stars, but on most recent watch, I really had to bump it up, because it's perfect. For me, the theatrical cut is the best version of the film, which is very rare that happens. But it's brilliantly paced, and epic action sequences, brilliant character work going on. Like I say, the way that it deals with themes of fatherhood and fate and all that kind of stuff is just, again, it's like I don't think Cameron gets enough credit as a writer. The way he deals with certain themes in his movies, I think he's an expert at it, particularly with Aliens and with this film, which are, for me, his two absolute masterpieces. So yeah, Terminator 2, one of the best action movies ever made. Blade Runner 2049. I'm sure this ain't much of a surprise to anyone. This is my favourite science fiction movie sequel of all time. It made my number one when me and Cody did our top 10 sci-fi sequels. It's perfection. The visuals, the character studies that's going on, the central character, the way it humanizes this android character played by Ryan Gosling, the way it builds so incredibly well on the first film. It's so few sequels that aren't made by the original directors and are made so far after as well actually live up to the original movies. And they often deviate so far from the original movie with regards to where they want to go, and that it just, they rarely work. They're rarely as good. Whereas Blade Runner 2049, it takes everything about that first film and builds on it and uses it and works it into the very fabric of this movie, to the point where now I can't separate the two. The two of them are so well linked. So it's one story. The way that it kind of completes Deckard's character arc, even though he doesn't even come into this film until 2/3 of the way into it. But it's just, it pays such great respect to the original and yet tells its own story. It's so amazing. I love it. It's just. Blade Runner 2049, perfection. Speaking of perfection, Tim Robbins, the actor, became a director, and he made Dead Man Walking, which as you see here, it sits at number 6. It's one of my favourite movies of all time. It's a film that I crack on like once every 5 years or so. When I started to kind of forget about it, forget how good it really is, wonder if it really was as good as I remember it being. And then I watch it and I'm just like, damn, it's so good. You know, it's character. You know, there's no explosions, there's no car chases, there's no fisticuffs. It is all character driven, really deep stuff that takes a long, hard look at the death penalty and vengeance over justice and what is justice and just it's a true story. It's one of those rare instances where I have actually read the book as well. One of the hardest books I've ever read, it's got to be said, though I'm not that much of a reader, if I'm being perfectly honest. But yeah, incredible performances from Susan Sarandon and Sean Penn. Probably my favourite Sean Penn performance, to be honest. And just the two of them, whenever they are on screen and just the character stuff is going on between them two, I'm just in it. I'm just absolutely in it. And it's, again, it's so low key. Roger Deakins, once again, as cinematographer, all that Robbins is concerned with is telling a good story, telling it well, and just focusing on the characters and the themes of the film. It's fantastic. Magnolia is an epic drama. It is one of those movies where once you get to the end of it, you feel like you've gone through the ringer. It is a film that really rips you to pieces and then by the end kind of puts them pieces back together and fixes you and makes you have a bit more faith in humanity. We see the worst of people in this film, but by the end we also see the best. And this film has one of my favourite, probably my all-time favourite character in it that was just written for cinema. So, I'm not talking about Batman. I know Batman's been made into films and stuff, and he's obviously one of my favourite characters, probably my favourite character. But I mean like a character that only appears in a film. He's not taken from any other source, and that is John C. Reilly's Cop. He's this Christian character, but he's not perfect. He's a flawed human being, but he's just trying to get by on his faith. He's trying to do the right thing. He's trying to treat people well. And I love his character. I love the journey he goes on. I love the relationship his character builds up with the character played by Melora Walters. And the final shot of this film floors me every time. It's one long shot. You can zone out, completely miss it, but in the final moments when Melora Walters looks up to screen, directly in, breaks that fourth wall and smiles, might just be my favourite shot of all time, because every time she smiles and tells us that it's going to be all okay, it's all going to be okay, every time it melts my heart, and I love it. The whole film, as I say, it's not an easy watch, but boy oh boy does it really, it gets me every time I watch it. And Tom Cruise, best performance he's ever given. The Truman Show is, for me, Jim Carrey's best film. Director Peter Weir is firing on all cylinders. It is funny. It is dramatic. It is clever, just really clever in the way that it takes a good look at modern society. It was ahead of its time. This was long before Big Brother. Big Brother started like a couple of years after, the reality TV shows took off a couple of years after this. It foreshadowed much of what was to come in the modern world, and it's just a brilliant film. Carey is amazing in it, in the central role, and this journey that he goes on is just, it's a film that is light in the sense that it's quite colourful. It's got amusing characters, but there is a real dark undertone that runs throughout, and it's about freedom. It's about a man choosing to live his own life, not the life that has been projected onto him, and just breaking through barriers. And that final scene when he takes that step to leave this world that has been created for him is just, it's a triumphant moment, you know, and the music that swells as that happens. Yeah, every time we get to that moment, I'm just like fist pumping. It's an awesome film. Truman Show, absolute classic, masterpiece. No one was in any doubt there what my favourite films were going to be. Look, I'm not saying that these are the best films ever made, although personally I think they are. I get why some people have criticisms of some of them. It's just, for me, these are my favourite movies of all time. I love them. Christopher Nolan is my favourite director. That too is no secret. Batman is my favourite fictional character. That is no secret. These films do for me what I want Batman films to do. I love them. I've spoke about them ad nauseum on my channel, so I'm just going to leave it there. Most people watching this video knew they were going to be my top 3 anyway, let's face it. If you're new to my channel, hey, there you go. Dark Knight Trilogy are my favourite movies of all time. I think I've lost count of the amount of times I've said that on my channel, to be honest, and I'm sure if you are a regular, you have too. There you go. That is my top 100 movies. The 2021 edition, at any rate. Like I say, if you go back on my channel, you'll be able to find the 2014 edition. Very different to this. Yeah, in another 5 years' time or so, who knows? I may do this again. Things may have changed. I will have seen many more movies by that point. So we'll see. But that is my top 100 as it stands today. Do let me know your thoughts on my choices. What do you think? Am I smoking crack? Or have I listed some of your favourites here? Let me know what would make your top 100. Heaven forbid, if you're adventurous enough, tell me what your top 100 is. Make a video and post a link down below. Do check out Cody Leach's top 100 as well if you haven't done so already. But thank you for watching this video. I know it was a long one for obvious reasons. But until next time, cracking.